Hey guys, welcome back. Today I thought it would be a fun idea to go back to my past and jump into the fascinating world of aviation. We're going to try to answer the question as to whether or not pilots from 80 years ago were tougher, stronger, and more physical than their modern day counterparts. So let's get right to it. In today's advanced airliners, many aircraft, especially those from Airbus, use fly-by-wire systems. These systems are fully electronic, meaning there's no direct mechanical linkage between the pilot's controls and the flight control surfaces. Instead, inputs from the pilot are transmitted electronically, and the computer decides the best way to achieve the desired response. As a result, there's no forced feedback on the joystick or control yoke. Boeing, in contrast, has incorporated a force feedback system into their control scheme, whereby the pilot, through the control yoke, can feel some of the forces that are being exerted on the control surface. While it still uses electronic signals, pilots can feel simulated resistance and forces to mimic the sensations of traditional mechanical controls. Not having to deal with some of these direct control forces in flight can certainly make the job a lot easier and a lot less physically demanding. But let's take a step back in time now, to the golden era of aviation, roughly 80 to 100 years ago, to see if pilots really were tougher back then. In order to investigate our topic, we're going to select two very popular aircraft, one military and one civilian, but both from the 1930s. They are the Douglas DC-3 and the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. Both of these planes had direct mechanical linkages, meaning pilots physically moved cables, pulleys, and rods to control the aircraft. That means when they put their hands on the yoke, they could feel the forces that were affecting the control surfaces, such as the aileron and elevator. And they would have to resist against these control forces with muscle power. Flying under these conditions required significant physical strength and endurance. Let's dive into the specific forces needed to pilot the DC-3 and the B-17, with the DC-3 being up first. The DC-3, made by Douglas Aircraft, first flew in 1935, and it revolutionized air travel with its range, reliability, and economic efficiency. Known for its durability and versatility, the DC-3 played a significant role during World War II and later on in the commercial aviation sector, becoming a workhorse for airlines around the world. Piloting this legendary aircraft, however, was no small feat. To be sure, pulleys and the like helped to magnify the pilot's force, using various physical principles of torque, levers, pulleys, and whatnot, but still, at times they'd be expected to exert in excess of 50 pounds of pressure on the yoke just to keep the aircraft under control, depending on what type of flight conditions we're in. To put that into perspective, that's more force required than lifting a 5-gallon jug of water around over and over again for a prolonged period of time, depending on the flight conditions. During turbulent conditions, the physicality of piloting the aircraft was also at play, and pilots had to wrestle with the control yoke, constantly making adjustments to maintain stable flight. As one pilot put it, it demanded respect and rewarded skill. You felt every movement, every gust of wind, and every change in the aircraft's attitude. It was a true test of a pilot's mettle. A similar quote can be found for the Boeing B-17, when Memphis Belle pilot stated, "Flying the B-17 was like wrestling a bear. You had to be strong and stay focused, especially when the flak was thick and the enemy fighters were closing in." Like the DC-3, the B-17 represented a major step forward in aviation during the 1930s, but unlike the DC-3, the B-17 was used exclusively for military purposes. Similar to the DC-3, the pilots flying the B-17 could expect to have to apply pressure of 50 pounds of force or greater to the aircraft's control yoke at times, depending on the conditions of flight, giving them an equally challenging workout to their DC-3 flying counterparts. Comparing this to today's cockpit practices, we can see that we've come a long way. We've moved from cockpits with direct force-driven mechanical linkage of the control systems and 4-person crews to 2-person crews with fly-by-wire technology, allowing for no resistance on the joystick whatsoever in some cases. In some ways, it's good to be able to relax more in the cockpit, and I'm sure it's nice at times to not have to wrestle against the control forces. On the other hand, I do think that there's something to be said about having another method to be in touch with the state and conditions of the airplane. And through force feedback, even if it's computer simulated, we have an extra level of tactile awareness as to the state of the plane in flight. Now, despite all the flack that Boeing's been getting recently for some of their design decisions over the past 10 years or so, I do think that Boeing has the correct solution for this, incorporating force feedback into their yoke. This gives the pilot an extra level of awareness as to the state of his aircraft by being able to sense, through his hands, the forces that are acting on his control surfaces. Now, I'm sure Airbus pilots transitioning over to Boeing would appreciate an option to toggle that force feedback system on and off, and there might be something to be said for that too. In any case, I'm sure the pilots of yesteryear would have looked at this as a nice reprieve to the types of flying that they were used to, having to combat all sorts of forces in the air. And I think that our hats really need to come off to those pilots for the blood, sweat, and tears that they put into the industry to make it what it is today. They were tough, unspoiled, and I think they still might have something to teach us from their example. If you like this type of content, go ahead and like, comment, and hit that subscribe button.